If you've ever seen me navigate the arena exits at a Korean boy band concert, you'll know that my survival skills are on point. So it only makes sense that it would transfer to how to survive a blues jam. Now, a lot of different cities are going to have blues jams that are kind of open to the public that seem like a cool thing but can kind of be intimidating if you've never done it before. And whether it's something formal like that or if it's just kind of getting together with some people you know and just playing at a music store or wherever, I'm just going to give you some tips on how you can survive a blues jam. Rocking the D'Angelico Deluxe SS right here. And really when it comes down to it, it's just kind of knowing a couple tricks in a couple different keys. And one of the things, aside from just knowing the structure of the blues, which I have a ton of videos on, it's kind of just being familiar in a few different keys. Now, the keys of E, A, and G are the most common blues guitar keys, and then also C and D will be other ones you use. So really, if you can kind of like just see how these tips move around in different keys, it's going to be super important. So we're going to start in the key of G, all right? The people's key, the key of G. Now really, one of the things that can be confusing if you're jamming with people you've never done before, it's like, all right, well, if we're going to do a 12-bar pattern, is it going to be 4 bars of 1, 2 bars of the 4 chord, 2 bars of the 1 chord, or is it going to be like 2 bars of the 1 chord, 2 bars of the 4 chord, then back to the 1 chord? There aren't a lot of structural variations, but there are some. So until you get the hang of it, it's good to kind of just see things that you can play over whatever, all right? So again, in the key of G, the main chords you're going to use in a blues progression are going to be G, 7, C, 7, and D, 7, okay? So again, or just G, C, and D. You don't have to use dominant 7 chords. A lot of times you're going to come across it. So until you can figure out how it's moving, it's good to just know where those chord tones are. Just single notes that are representative of the chords. Because any of these single notes, whether it's a G, a C, or a D, can be played over any part of that progression. And it's not going to sound bad, just to kind of buy yourself time in case you want to do something a little bit different, right? So it's good to know that here's the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. Again, that comes from the major scale, G, C, and D. 3E, 3A, and 5A, okay? Now, aside from just being on the lower 2 strings on a guitar, you kind of want to know where these are all over the place. So you can kind of like land on these chord tones when those scales or when those progressions are coming around. So knowing this is a great way to find those 3 notes in different locations, okay? So here's the G, C, and D. Now you just repeat that same kind of pattern, this little L shape where you start here, go straight down a string, 2 frets higher. Right here is starting again. So here's another G, here's the octave G, just like that. And then we can do it 1 octave higher, but to compensate for the B string, we're going to go 1 fret higher. So here's your G, here's your C, and here's your D, okay? So the 1, 4, 5, the 1, 4, 5, and the 1, 4, 5. So until you kind of figure out or become more comfortable with an environment, any of these notes are going to work in any kind of G blues jam. Again, another really common one is A. The same thing works. You just start on an A, the 5th fret of the low E string. And then this little pattern is always going to give you the 1, 4, and 5 chords in a blues jam. Now, you might kind of sound stupid just playing that over a blues, but what you can do is you can start taking a little bit of these pieces of these notes, specifically in G. Like let's go to the 5 chord, and then the octave 1 chord, right? There's the 1. So we know that right here, these 3 notes on the 5th fret, A, D, and G, are really just kind of things you can maybe start double stopping, playing together. And then just kind of playing those at the same time. That's going to go over any of these chords, right? So if it's a G7, or a C7, or a D7. So it kind of is like this static thing that isn't, you know, bad. It isn't super musical or bluesy yet, but it's a way to kind of like just like kind of vamp on something and just play it while you're figuring out. Maybe you can like look at another guitarist's hands to see what kind of shapes they're getting into until you can maybe choose something a little bit more interesting, like a pentatonic run, which we're going to talk to you in a second. But another thing to kind of think about is usually if you're going into a blues jam, a lot of times there's not going to be a whole lot of pressure on someone who's just showing up for maybe the first time, you know? So again, try to alleviate some of that pressure. Usually like the structure of it is probably going to be carried out by someone else. Or if it does fall on your shoulders, then you can do whatever you want and just do any variation of the 12-bar blues and have them figure out what you're playing and play to you. I think the fear, the survival element of it is like, well, what if they ask me to like play lead or play a solo or something like that? And a lot of that, the best way to deal with that is if you're just kind of comfortable, just kind of playing whatever, maybe just tracking the root notes, however you want. If they give you a look like, oh, hey, it's time for you to play a solo, just pretend that you don't see them. And the longer that you can ignore the person who's trying to signal you that it's your turn to play, the better off you're going to be. Now, if you do want to start soloing, I would say is just keep it something super simple. And then just remember that a lot of the blues is a minor pentatonic scale played over a dominant 7 chord. So now let's go to a different key. Let's go to another common one. So, you know, again, the most common ones being E, A, G, C, and D. Let's do something in the key of C, right? So the chords here would be like a C7 to an F7 to a G7 to a C7, okay? So let's learn a little quick pentatonic lick that isn't even super musical, just something that sounds kind of like a blues lead thing that we can apply over any one of those chords. You can mix and match, all right? So if we go to C, the 8th fret on the low E string, we can go to our favorite minor pentatonic scale right there, right? 8, 11, 8, 10, 8, 10, 8, 10, 8, 11, 8, 11, all right? So anything from those notes is going to sound good over a C7 chord. Any of that stuff is going to sound good, so let's focus in on maybe just this part. Classic blues pentatonic riff lick right here. The G string, ring finger, grab the 10th fret, bend it, come back, 8th fret, D string, 10th fret, back to the G string, 8th fret, and on your root note, the tonic, if you will, which is the C octave up on the D string. So if you've diagnosed that this is a blues in the key of C, anytime there's that C chord, in any order or any kind of tempo, anything is going to sound good over that blues progression. Then, when you go to the next chord, which would be like F7, you can just do that in the same thing. Find an F, whether it's like the 1st fret on the low E string or the 13th fret, if you have room on a cutaway or an electric guitar. You do the same thing here. That lick is still going to work over any root notes chord. Then when you get to the G, there's the G, and then back to C. Now this is just kind of part of a larger series that I did with Ian on how to jam with confidence that we made, which I'm going to give you a link below to, because this is just kind of like a small, quick tips and trick video. We go into a lot more depth and specifically spend an entire chapter on just blues jamming. But really, I think a lot of it comes down to just diagnosing what key it's in and then being able to kind of use whatever lick or riff that you can and find out where to insert those. And I think thinking of a structure, just 1 4s and 5s, starting with, you know, any note that you're in the key of G, it starts here. In the key of E, like an E blues, it'd just be open E, 2A, or open E, open A, then 2A. There's your 1 4 5, and then everything repeats. 1 4 5, 1 4 5. Okay, so knowing where those are, and then being able to find out where that, maybe like the E, A, B. In the key of G, the 1 is a G, the 4 is a C, go to the C, the 5 is a D. In the key of A, the 1 is A, the 4 is D, and the 5 is E. In the key of C, the 1 is a C, the 4 is F, and the 5 is G. So really, just kind of like simplify it first, and then just kind of go and check it out, because really just get out there and do something. It's, you know, it's a lot of fun. I think a lot of people performing on a stage or performing in front of other people, it's such a daunting thing at first. And once you do it, you kind of realize that, like, why was I so afraid of this? Because people totally understand. And in my experience, in kind of open forum jam sessions like that, if you screw up, if you sound bad, if you make a mistake, nobody really cares. Again, the stakes are so low that you can only do a good job, right? It's not life and death. Just get out there, do it. Take the masterclass. We go way in depth on a lot of these things, but again, tracking root notes, seeing them all over the fretboard, and then adding whatever pentatonic thing you can do, because any of those pentatonic riffs are going to fit over that minor pentatonic spot in a 1-4-5 blues chord progression. So thanks for checking it out. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any comments, hit me in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website, and make sure to take that masterclass because we got another one coming soon, so you don't want to miss it. Thanks a lot.